So this is actually pretty entertaining to watch. This specific portion, anyway, it's not really too entertaining to watch. An attempt at thwarting democracy, obviously. But here's an interesting story. It says Trump. He says, "I'm ashamed that I endorsed Kemp in Georgia." Obviously, Brian Kemp is the current governor of Georgia. I believe Brian Kemp was the Secretary of State when he last ran for governor, when he cheated his way to victory over Stacey Abrams, and he rigged the election in favor of himself. Now, what's really entertaining to watch is Trump turning on other Republicans, and the Republican turning on it. It becomes a real big divisive issue for them. We saw what happened to Sidney Powell, right? She was part of the legal team. Then she started talking shit about Republicans and saying certain Republicans in certain primaries had lost their election. So she thought that Loeffler lost. And that's when they're like, okay, we got to distance ourselves from you because you're going to divide us up. So it says President Trump on Sunday said he regretted endorsing Georgia Governor Brian Kemp, taking a swipe at the top Republicans in the state ahead of two critical Senate runoff elections. The president decried the use of Dominion voting system machines in Georgia, which are the subject of unproven conspiracies among some conservatives. He placed blame at the feet of Kemp and Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger for approving the rules of the election. Remember, Brad Raffensperger, we talked about earlier, because Trump has actually been shitting on Brad Raffensperger for a while now. Now, he endorsed both of them. He endorsed Raffensperger and he endorsed Brian Kemp for their election for governor and secretary of state. He says, quote, "Everything has to be approved by the legislature, and they had judges making deals, and they had electoral officials making deals like this character in Georgia, who's a disaster. And the governor's done nothing. He's done absolutely nothing. I'm ashamed that I endorsed him, but I look what's going on. It's terrible." So he's continuing his calls for, there being supposed, electoral fraud, vote fraud, which is just totally false, unproven. He's going to continue to do it. It's getting pretty repetitive at this point, to be completely honest with you, and it's really cringy. But it's interesting to see him calling out other Republicans, especially because there are two runoff elections in Georgia. So if you're shitting on Kemp and Raffensperger, what does that mean for Kelly Loeffler? What does that mean for Perdue? Who do they go with? Do they go with Trump? Or do they embrace Raffensperger and Kemp? You have a divide now. Now the Senate candidates, they've got to decide which side they're going to go with, right? What I've seen is Loeffler, who's super rich, by the way, almost worth, like, her and her husband are worth almost $1 billion, which is crazy. But what I've seen is she has praised Trump full on, like a Trump, zombie pretty much. I think Perdue might be a Trump zombie as well, but definitely not as much as Kelly Loeffler is. So there's kind of this divide that's growing. We also saw people like Steven Crowder and other Republicans shitting on Tucker Carlson for questioning Sidney Powell. We're seeing Fox News fans, former Fox News fans who are Trumpies, who don't like that they're not going full throttle on the crazy stuff, even though they did go pretty hard on the crazy stuff. But at this point, they're just like, come on, man, like, this is just a waste of time. So there's a huge divide right now. And obviously Trump's claims of election fraud are just totally false. He's an idiot, a loser, and a clown. But when it comes to this Georgia race, he's not going to be able to overturn the results. The margin is too large. I think it's over like 14,000, maybe even more at this point. But going to be really interesting, man. And it's also going to be interesting. Some people seem to think that his claims of the vote being rigged might actually be a depressant for voters, for Republican Trump voters, which that could be like one of the only things I think that could really put those Georgia candidates over the top, I feel like. So that might be something that could help the Georgia Democrats, but I'm not sure how that's going to pan out. But yeah, interesting to see what's going on in the Republican Party.